Good morning. All right. So today we're going to move it a little harder. We're going to be doing solving and factoring, or factoring then solving quadratics. So I'm not quadratics, polynomials. Sorry, just woke up. So real quick, what I want you guys to think about when you're factoring, your whole goal always is to try your hardest to get every polynomial to eventually resemble quadratics, because quadratics are easy to solve and that'll make life very easy for you. Okay. So for example, if I've got this expression right here, I'll pull some more in just a minute. But first things first, if I get this expression right here, I want to eventually solve this. So if I can make this the highest power equal to 0, I can then solve for this quadratic, or this cubic function. So what is the GCF of all three of these terms? Happens to be the only biggest thing I can take out of all three, happens to be x, right? So then I'm left with x squared plus 2x minus 6 equals 0. Because then this factors down one more time, and I know that negative 2 times positive 3 is negative 6, and negative 2 plus 3, oops, this should be 1. Oopsie doopsie, oopsie doopsie. This should be 1. Alright, so then that was my fault. I just went a little too fast on that one. So now I know that this is now going to be x plus 3, and then x minus 2 equals 0. And then the last instruction for today would be, what are all the solutions? Well, if this x right here is positive 2, this whole thing is equal to 0. If this x right here is negative 3, this makes this 0. Multiply everything, makes this all 0. And if this x here equals 0, then again, this whole thing is 0 no matter what. So I have found my 3 possible solutions based on how I could look at it, find the GCF, factor it, go from there. Now I'm going to do another couple examples on some stuff you've seen in the past. Alright, factoring by grouping. Alright, and then we're going to be solving after you factor by grouping. And I'll show you some new stuff today. So we're going to factor this by grouping. So if I got x to the third plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 10, well, let's factor this by grouping. So if you remember, we did this last week. We look at these front two terms, these back two terms, find the GCF of both. Well, right here I got x squared is factored out of both of these, and this is x plus 2. And I want to try to make this parentheses look like this. So instead of factoring out a 5, I'm going to factor out a negative 5, so I'm left with a plus 2. So to factor out the negative 5, I get x plus 2. Okay? So now when I write this to solve this equal to 0, I know x squared minus 5 is 1, and x plus 2 equals 0. Now to go one step further to solve for this simple place, because now it resembles a quadratic, or a quadratic form, I'm looking strictly at this one. Well, if x equals negative 2, this whole thing is 0. Now, here's the work that goes on. Remember, you're solving each equal to 0. That's why we know when I solve this, set this equal to 0, I then just subtract 2. That's why x is negative 2. Over here, I want to add 5 to both sides. So now I have x squared equals positive 5. Now I just solved taking square roots. So the other solutions are x equals plus or minus square root of 5. So here is your other solution. Okay? That's how you would do it like this. I will do uno más. You can pause it whenever you want so I don't go so fast. And then we'll get to some other harder stuff for today. Okay? The next one I got is going to be, if I got 4x cubed minus 8x squared plus 6x minus 12. Well, here we go. How do I do this one? GCF. Look at numbers and letters. So I'm going to factor out a 4x squared to be left with x minus 2. And I'm going to divide out a 6 to get x minus 2. Okay? Now, let's keep going. So when I do this, I know that this is going to be 4x squared plus 6, x minus 2 equals 0 equals 0. Okay? Now, again, pretty simple. We know this one is x equals 2. A little bit of work. 4x squared plus 6 equals 0. Subtract 6. 4x squared equals negative 6 divided by 4. So x squared equals negative 3 halves. And then I would square root both sides. Now, this is unintended that this happened, but it's okay because you guys are going to see this eventually. Now you might as well get used to it. We know that you cannot take the square root of a negative number, okay? So the way you'd express this, if you see this one now, I do not think you're going to see it in today's work. I know you're not going to see it in today's work, but in the future you will. Well, because this does not exist, we call that imaginary in math. We're going to the way we express this final answer is x equals plus or minus I square root. This I on the outside lets us know that this inside here is a negative number. So I took it out. Oh, look who popped in. All right, give me 1 second, sweetie.
Hi. Hello. See ya.
All right. So, because this means the same as, for the sake of argument, this means the same as x equals plus or minus square root of negative 3 halves. But that is not allowed in math, so therefore you guys got to express it with I, which stands for imaginary. And you'll be seeing this a lot next year, towards the end of the year, no matter what. But it's a good introduction because you might be seeing some work that we do to finish off the year. That takes care of that. So I'm going to now do another couple examples on some stuff you'll see. You'll see this kind of stuff today. Again, you won't see this, but you will eventually. But it's pretty basic and straightforward there. That's a pre-calculus. So now let's go to some harder stuff. So let's say I'm going to do this. X to the 4th plus 9x squared plus 18. All right, well, we have never worked with this, but we can make this very easy. I'm going to do something real quick off to the side just to help you guys think through this rationally. Let's pretend for a second. Let's just pretend for a second that this said x squared plus 9x plus 18, right? And again, this is equal to 0, equal to 0. Now, how would you solve this? Well, what multiplies to 18 that adds to 9? Well, that's pretty simple. X plus 6 times x plus 3 equals 0. So now I know my answers are x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 6. Okay? Simple as that. Done. Well, this is really no different because these are both even powers, and this is going to be really easy to break up. So now I know that I can factor this as x squared plus 6, x squared plus 3 equals 0. See that? So it's almost the exact same thing, just be a little more aware and cognizant that in this case, we're going to have this. The front term is now x squared instead of x because, think about it, x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. I get 3x squared plus 6x squared. There's my 9x squared. This times this is 18. So still the same kind of thinking to an extent. Now, one step further, to solve for this, subtract 3 from both sides, right? So x squared plus 3 equals 0. Subtract 3. You don't have to show your work like this. I'm just showing it so you guys see it. Square root both sides. So x equals plus or minus I square root 3. There's one answer. And then again, x squared plus 6 equals 0. Subtract 6. X squared equals negative 6. Square root both sides. So now this is x plus or minus I square root 6. There would be your other solution for something like this. Okay? Let's go through another one. And then I got a few more to go. So now we're using that thinking. Let's do another one with x to the 4th. Okay? So let's say I got x to the 4th minus 3x squared minus 10. So, again, this is nice. We know that this front term is x squared equals 0. Well, what multiplies to negative 10 that also adds to negative 5? Oh, that's right. Minus 5 and plus 2 equals 0. I think you're getting the hang of this now, at least I hope. You subtract 2, square root both sides. So this is going to be x equals plus or minus I square root 2, because you're going to have negative 2 under the square root sign there. And then this one will be nice because you're going to add 5 to both sides with positive answers. So x equals plus or minus square root 5. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 answers. Remember, I got 4 possible solutions. The plus or minus counts as 2 answers. And I got a power 4, which lends us to what we did last week about the whole degree, power, solutions, all that stuff. There are 4 answers. There are 4 possible answers. Well, we mathematically found 4 answers. But this imaginary means that imaginary number means it's not going to cross the x-axis. Okay, but we still found a solution for this, but it's not really existent. And that's going to be some stuff you're going to go over at another point. All right, let's do another one. A little harder. Okay, so it goes this way. If I got 2x to the 6th power plus 12x to the 4th power plus 10 equals 0. All right, well, plus 10, sorry, 10, I forgot something there. Plus 10x squared equals 0. All right, well, let's factor out our GCF of all 3 of these terms. They're all even, they all have an x. So let's factor out a 2x squared. So now I'm left with x to the 4th plus 6x squared plus 5 equals 0. Now, based on what we just learned a minute ago, this factors down again. So I got 2x squared. I'm going to have an x squared and another x squared equals 0. Well, what multiplies to 5? That adds to 6. You guessed it, plus 5 plus 1. Okay? So here we have x is equal to plus or minus I square root 1, because I subtract 1. This one's also x equals plus or minus I square root 5, because this is minusing. And this one is just x equals 0. So you might see some questions on Khan Academy and some other stuff, and they're going to ask you, how many real solutions does this polynomial have? Well, you have to go through this work to factor it down, because this is not real, this is not real, this is the only real solution to this particular polynomial. Therefore, your answer would be 1 real solution, and that's the thing you'll see later. But I'll keep going over it so you get it in your head. Let's do another one. All right, we got another one, a little funky. X to the 5th minus 5x to the 3rd minus 14x. All right, always look, always think, what is my GCF? In this case, x is the only GCF. X to the 4th minus 5x squared minus 14 equals 0. Okay? Break this down one step further. X, we got x squared. What multiplies to this, adds to this? Negative 7. X squared plus 2 equals 0. That is correct. So I have x equals plus or minus I square root 2. I have x equals plus or minus 7, because I'm adding 7 to both sides, and I have x equals 0. So how many real solutions does this polynomial have? Turns out 1, 2, 3 real solutions. All right, last but not least, something you have not seen yet, but we gotta go over so you get the hang of this. Start easy and then eventually get a little more challenging. What you're gonna see today. What you have to know are 2 things. You got, put it over here. Factoring sums of cubes. And if you have a cube such as a to the 3rd plus b to the 3rd, this is going to equal a plus b times a squared minus ab plus b squared. Okay, and I'll show you what this means in just 1 second. And if I got factoring a difference of cubes, a to the third minus b to the third equals a minus b, and then a squared plus ab plus b squared. So, how does this work out? Let's just do this one, because obviously they're both true, but I'll show you how this works out. If I have a plus b times a squared minus ab plus b squared, just do 4 like we did yesterday. So this would be a to the third, a to the third minus a squared b, because a times a is a squared, keep that b together. I know this is plus a b squared. This is going to be plus a squared b. And look at this, these are going to cancel out. And this is minus a b squared plus b to the third. I'm left with a to the third negative a squared b. Where's the like term? This is the only other like term because this is a squared b. They're the exact same. They cancel off. Done, done. ab squared minus ab squared cancels, and this is plus b to the third. So what you're literally doing to get this middle term right here, when this is a plus right here, you know your factor over here is going to be minus. When this is a minus, you know that this is a minus and this is a plus. All right, that's the key thing, that the key way both of those work. So I'm going to leave this up so you can see how we're going to do this in 1 second. I'm going to do 2 examples and you guys are on your own. So, where are my examples? All right. Let's do these two. If I have x to the third minus 27, I got to factor this. And this is a minus, so this is finding the difference of cubes. So I'm looking at this. Well, you got to know what is the cube root of 27. You guys use decimals to do this. If you don't know how to do that, ask a friend or see me in class today at 1 o'clock. So this, or now I'm going to actually push back class to probably like 1:30 starts because I have a doctor's appointment today. So now we got, this is going to be the cube root of 27, which equals 9. Okay, which actually this is not 9, duh. This is going to be of negative 27, so this is negative 3. Okay, so the way I could now write this, just so I have it for my sake of reference, x to the third minus 3 to the third. You can take the cube root of a negative number because negative cube roots exist, negative fifth roots exist, negative seventh roots exist, negative 9. You see that point there? Negative square roots, negative fourth roots, negative sixth roots don't exist. So now that I got this structure, all right, I'm going to rewrite it into my form. I know this is a, which is just x, so I got x minus 3 times, I'm going to do x squared plus this times this, 3x, okay? And then whatever this is, plus the leftover stuff here, because this is to the power of 1, I need this to the power of 2, so this is 3 to the power of 2. Now, if you want to double check on math to prove that we are right, let's do it, okay? X to the third plus 3x squared plus 3 squared we know is 9, so this is 9x. This times this is negative 3x squared. This is negative 9x, okay? Negative 3 times positive 3. And this times this is going to be literally 9 times negative 3, negative 27. So this cancels. X to the third, positive 3x squared, negative 3x squared, cancels. Positive, negative, cancels, and I'm left with negative 27. I have successfully factored this as such, okay? I will do one more and then we're done. Last but not least, I got x to the third plus 64, and I know that I already know what this is because I'm so smart, but the cube root of 64 is 4. So this is now x to the third plus 4 to the third equals, follow this rule right here, x plus 4, and then we have x squared, this times this, plus, sorry, that was not on purpose, that was an honest mistake. Let's make this a little prettier. Minus 4x, because I follow this rule, plus 4 squared, or we can just go ahead and write down 16, because we know that is what it simplifies to. So I hope today was informative for you. You're going to have your work to do. I'll see you guys today at 1:30.